The Eagles offense shows out in their 40-33 win over the Packers. I'll recap the game and tell you why I think this team has what it takes to win it all. Also, the Sixers role players have been stepping up big time in the absence of Embiid, Harden, and Maxey. But is their play sustainable? This episode of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel starts right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. I am your host, Jordan Hirsch. And now, guys, before we get into this video, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. Make sure you guys are also following me on Instagram. The link will be in the description below. So the Eagles improved to 10-1 last night with their 40-33 win over Green Bay. Let's take a quick look at the box score here because there is a lot to get to, especially on the offensive side of the ball here for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts had a career night with 153 yards passing and 153 yards rushing. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to have over 150 yards passing and rushing in the same game. The Eagles were breaking records left and right last night. Hurts went 16 for 28. On his passes, 4 of them going to Devontae Smith for 50 yards, another 4 to A.J. Brown for 46 yards, a touchdown for Brown. Quez Watkins had a touchdown as well on the deep ball, which was just a beautifully thrown pass and an even better catch by Quez, who has really turned it up the last few weeks. But getting back to Jalen Hurts, I mean, man, how good has this guy been? News broke about a few hours before the game, the Eagles were having internal discussions about potentially giving Jalen Hurts a contract extension that would be worth $50 million per year, and Jalen Hurts certainly answered the bell last night. I mean, he had seriously one heck of a night. He had over 100 yards rushing in the first quarter. He's the first player also to have 125 plus passing yards and rushing yards in the first half of an NFL game, and the Eagles' run game last night in total was just dominant. How about Miles Sanders? The best game of his career, 21 carries, 143 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He averaged almost 7 yards per carry. He was looking like Ezekiel Elliott, honestly, from a few years ago, where it looked like he'd be stopped for a short game, maybe 2 or 3, and then he'd fall forward, and all of a sudden the Eagles are picking up 6-7 yards a play. Miles Sanders' longest run of 28 yards, and it wasn't just Sanders. Kenny Gainwell with 8 carries for 39 yards. He added a touchdown. Boston Scott in limited playing time had a pretty nice night with 3 carries and 24 yards. Eagles in total rushed for 363 yards last night, coming within about 20 yards of the all-time record. It was their most rushing yards in a game since 1948. 1948, that is 74 years ago. So the Eagles with an all-time performance last night. And I think last night was really just a good showing of how this team was built and how they were built to win. Because the Eagles excelled in every facet of the game on the offensive end. Obviously, the 363 yards. The RPO was dominant. The Packers had absolutely no answers for the Eagles' RPO all night. And that's how this team was built to win. When the Eagles obviously give Jalen Hurts that option to just read the defensive line and either take off or hand the ball off to Miles Sanders. And when you've got Miles Sanders running for 7 yards a play and Jalen Hurts getting 157 yards on the ground, both of those options are going to be good. And then, right when it looked like the Packers had kind of started to figure out the Eagles' run game, they decided to go to the air. Jalen Hurts with 153 yards passing, and he was real accurate yesterday. I mean, 16 for 28 doesn't really tell the story because some of the passes that he was making were right on target. I mean, I talked about the Quez Watkins one touchdown the end of the first half a little bit earlier. I want to give that one a little bit more credit because that pass was perfect. Right in the spot where only Quez could get to it. An excellent job by Watkins adjusting to the ball and making the catch there. The touchdown pass to A.J. Brown, right on the money. It's really insane how Jalen Hurts' accuracy has improved so much from last year to this year. Because remember, the conversation last season was, oh yeah, he's skillful, he's athletic, but can he throw the ball with accuracy? Can he make the right decisions? Well, he has proven that and then some this season. Last night was just a really good showing of how well he has improved from last season to this year. I also thought that the defense really stepped it up well yesterday, as well as they could at least, as the Eagles' special teams did not give the defense any help. Packers had 5 short fields, 3 set up by long returns in the kicking game, and then 1 by the fumble fumble return, and then the other by the Eagles going for it on fourth down in the first quarter. But I thought the defense was really good for what it's worth. They came up with the 2 interceptions, one by Josiah Scott, one by Reed Blankenship. They did give up 33 points, but you got to remember they were down their top 2 safeties for most of the game, with Avonte Maddox out, of course, the whole game, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson with that rib injury in the first quarter. And I think 33 points against Aaron Rodgers, after giving him 5 short fields and down your top 2 safeties, I'll take that. Rodgers was 11 for 16 for 140 yards before he left with the oblique injury. Eagles got to him 3 times. In big spots, too. Got to him on a couple of third downs. I thought that the Eagles' defensive line has been much improved since Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh came over. Jordan Love kind of opened up the Eagles' defense a little bit, but most of that was on the one play to Christian Watson. Love went 6 for 9 for 113 yards, but again, a large chunk of that on the one Christian Watson play. Special teams was, of course, the only problem last night. I get it, there was wind. Last night it was really windy down there, and that caused some of Jake Elliott's kickoffs to fall a little bit short. But the Packers had a 39-yard return, a 53-yard return, a 57-yard return, I believe. You just can't let that happen. I mean, they were returning it from more than halfway into our end zone. There was just no respect there. I think that was really the only problem if you're picky on last night's game. But all in all, I think it was exactly how the Eagles were built to win games this year. I think that's how they won the game yesterday. And I think that is really sustainable, too. I mean, this Eagles offense looks dominant. The Eagles defense looks dominant, and the special teams is going to need some work. But I think overall, this team going into the playoffs, I think they're going to get the 1 seed. They're basically 2 games up on the Vikings with 6 to go, and their schedule isn't that bad. If you look at it, they'd have to lose 2 games in the standings, which means they'd have to lose at least 2 more games. Their upcoming schedule, you got, of course, 2 against the Giants. They got the Saints in there, the Bears, the Titans, and Dallas. I don't know if there's 2 losses in there. There might not even be 1 loss in there. I think the Eagles are probably the best team in the NFC, and I really think that this team is poised for a deep playoff run, and honestly, probably a Super Bowl run, because I don't think that there's any team that you could definitively say that's going to come into the Link and beat the Eagles in a playoff game. The Eagles have a very good record at the Link in the playoffs for the franchise. And I really don't see any team right now that is going to come in here and beat them. The only team that scares me a little bit is San Francisco, just because of their defense. 49ers have pitched 4 consecutive second-half shutouts, which is unheard of. But I think the Eagles are better on both sides of the ball than Dallas. I think they're better on both sides of the ball than Minnesota, and they proved that in Week 2. I think they're definitely better than Tampa Bay. I think they're better than New York. I think they're better than Washington. I think they are the best team in the NFC. Best team in the league, I think, is up for a little bit more debate, especially with the way the Chiefs are going right now, and the Bills as well. But best team in the NFC, I think the Eagles are, and I really don't see a team that's going to definitively come in here in a playoff game and get a win. So as of right now, I do think this team is probably Super Bowl bound as long as they could stay healthy. They're going to be getting Dallas Goedert and Avonte Maddox back in the coming weeks. That should certainly help. Eagles have been just fine without them, especially this past game. So I really think this team is poised for a very deep playoff run and playing into February. Of course, the Eagles are not the only team trending in the right direction in this city, as the Sixers have now won 3 of their last 4 games, minus Harden, Maxey, and Embiid. The Sixers role players really stepping up. And I want to talk about a lot of these guys. I think the main guy being Shake Milton. How about the 4 games he has had? 16 points in the game against Brooklyn last Tuesday. Follow that up with a 22-point performance in Charlotte. And then in this little 2-game series in Orlando, how about 24 points and 1 rebound away from his first career triple-double? Gets his first career double-double with 24, 9, and 10. And then Shake Milton also with 29 points last night in the Sixers' 133-103 rout down in Orlando. So many things going right for this team right now. And Shake Milton hopefully is finally finding that consistency to his game that has kind of been lacking through his first few years in the league. I've always believed in Shake Milton. I've always thought the talent was there. It's just the consistency needed to come with it. And I'm hoping that right now that's what's happening. I think that once Embiid, Harden, and Maxey do come back, I'm really hoping to see Shake Milton get some legitimate bench minutes. Him and D'Anthony Melton have been outstanding during this little 4-game stretch, and I hope that is the bench backcourt there, that Milton-Melton connection. How about D'Anthony Melton, though? Let's talk about him a little bit. His defense, man, is just ridiculous. I'm telling you. His perimeter defense overall has been just outstanding. I think he's kind of a sneaky candidate right now for Defensive Player of the Year, I believe. Over this 4-game stretch, D-Melt has come up with 14 steals. He hasn't had less than 3 in a game during this stretch. I mean, he's been absolutely fantastic. And it's really helped the Sixers can win this. The Sixers team, they're one of the slowest paced teams in the NBA, and when D'Anthony Melton's coming up with all these steals, it really allows them to get out and run. And of course, you cannot talk about this Sixers 4-game stretch without talking about Tobias Harris. Man, has he really stepped up during this 4-game stretch. He is a plus 27 and a plus 33 in the 3 wins. Tobias Harris is really, I feel like, with Maxey, Embiid, and Harden out, Harris has really taken this opportunity to kind of lead this team through this stretch, and I thought that he's really looked like a quality leader of this team during this little stretch the Sixers are on right now. I think this confidence is oozing off of him, and it shows in his point production against Brooklyn here. He's got 24 points, then 19 in the loss against Charlotte. Then in the 2-game series against Orlando, how about 23 points in Game 1 and 25 points in Game 2? The leadership really stepping up there, Tobias Harris. And the field goal percentage, he's been a lot more efficient. That's, I think, been the major problem in the last couple of years for Tobias, is the efficiency. But 10 for 21 against Brooklyn, then 9 for 20 against Charlotte, and then against Orlando, 10 for 21 the first game and 10 for 14 in the second game. So he's getting 9-10 shots per game making about 9-10 shots per game. That's exactly what you're looking for out of a guy like Tobias Harris. And when Embiid, Harden, and Maxey do come back, obviously his touches are going to go down a bit, but I'm hoping that the efficiency can still be there, because if Harris can give you that middle teens points, maybe 14, 16, 17 points a night, that's basically all you're asking for out of him right now, as long as Maxey, Harden, and Embiid are doing their thing, and Harris is putting up those kind of numbers. Sixers are going to be a pretty scary team. And I also want to quickly touch on just how good the Sixers bench play has been during this stretch. I mean, how about the backup centers, Montrezl Harrell and Paul Reed, really stepping up. I really like what I see from Paul Reed. Typically, he does have his moments where you're like, what are you doing out there? But that will come with aggressiveness, and I do think that Paul Reed has really had a coming out party these last 4 games, and when he is able to get enough touches, I think most of the time good things are going to happen. Montrezl Harrell's the same way, where there are kind of times out there where you're like, dude, what are you doing? But I don't think you can argue with the results from Montrezl Harrell either, as he's gotten a start during these 4-game stretches. Just 6 points against Brooklyn, but then started to really turn it on as he put up 16 points in the loss in Charlotte, and then the 2 games in Orlando, 14 points in Game 1, just 9 in Game 2, but only 18 minutes there, as Sixers were kind of able to get their starters out of the game as they were up big on the Magic. And I also want to talk about George Niang, who during this 4-game stretch is 13 for 25 from deep. He's having the best shooting. He is the best 3-point shooting of his career right now. About 45% from deep, 20 games into the season. Off your bench, you're certainly taking that from a guy like George Niang, who is an energy player. And when he's hot like this, he could really, I think his energy really feeds in the Sixers' momentum they've got going right now. I think they just play a much better brand of basketball when George Niang. It really adds another layer to this team as well when Niang's knocking down those threes, because it really helps space the floor for this team. And on the injury front, some good news for the Sixers is Joel Embiid, at least at the time this video is being made, is questionable for tonight's game at 7 o'clock against the Hawks. Once I get this video up, he might either be listed as in or out. But good to see that he is at least questionable, and if he doesn't play today, he's probably going to play on Wednesday, coming back from that foot injury. I think James Harden is also real close to returning. Could look to see that. Maybe either this week, if not this week, maybe beginning of next week. And Tyrese Maxey probably still a couple weeks away, but Sixers starting to get healthier, which is certainly a good thing. I think you add Embiid, Harden, Maxey, and the way they're playing right now, as long as they keep this going, team's going to be really dangerous. If you guys have made it this far, leave a comment and tell me what you guys have been most impressed with on the Sixers during this 4-game stretch. For me, I think it's the leadership aspect of Tobias Harris. He kind of looked lost sometimes when Embiid, Harden, and Maxey are out there. But during this 4-game stretch, he has really stepped up and taking control of this team, and it's really fun to watch. And alright, that is going to wrap things up for this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. Again, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. Upload schedule has been all over the place recently. Hopefully you can get back into Saturday this week, so make sure you got those notifications turned on. Make sure you guys are also following me on Instagram. The link's going to be down in the description below, or you can just look me up. It's at Philly Sports Spot. That's PhillySportSpot. So just one S between sport and spot. And until next week, guys, let's go Sixers and fly, Eagles fly. 10-1, baby.